Hi everyone, it's absolutely brilliant to be here today to talk about a topic that's very close to my heart, and mainly because I really believe in building other people's confidence. That really brings me joy, and so talking about this topic and shining a light on it is the way that I want to help equip you all, both in person and online, with some skills that you can use for life. So this is all about tackling imposter syndrome, but also taking advantage of it. So hi everyone at March 8. It's brilliant to be welcomed by this organisation that's championing women all around the world and in different industries. And I kind of just want to caveat that I'm not doing this talk because I'm a woman and women and imposter syndrome go hand in hand. Not at all. This is me talking as a human being with a pulse, because everybody gets imposter syndrome, I promise you that. Take away one thing from this talk, if it's that, it's a success. So yes, thank you so much for the introduction. I am Steph Marques at Bernadette, and we are a product and service innovation agency. So we design all sorts of websites and apps, but we go beyond that, starting to look into what could be the metaverse and AR, VR, etc., and just any experience that involves digital, basically. And Bernadette is the digital product and services agency within advertising agency VCCP. And if you've seen a Meerkat advert for Compare the Market, they're the ones. So they work with EasyJet, Cadbury, O2, etc. And we have a lot of fun working with the creativity that comes with a company that works on that sort of material. So what is imposter syndrome? Let's start from the beginning. And I was trying to think, how can I sort of summarize this? And I thought, you know what? It's kind of like a little voice that sort of comes from your shoulder, digs at you. And so I thought, I know, I'll have a Google search for that sort of devil on your shoulder. And I found Homer Simpson. And I just think this little cartoon summarizes what imposter syndrome is. So imposter syndrome is that little nagging, annoying devil that sits on your shoulder. But on the right-hand side, we have the angel. And that's the bit that I'm going to help you tap into today. This is sort of your personal pep talk, I've nicknamed it. So one thing I wanted to clear up, actually, is that I think there are two forces at play that can get a bit intermingled. So the first one is nerves, and just being generally nervous about something, maybe trying something new for the first time, maybe talking on a big stage, those sorts of things. So there's nerves. And then there's imposter syndrome as well, which is a little bit more of a comparison, I don't feel like I should be here, for example. So I thought I'd give you an example, because this is not just in a work situation, this can be in any situation. So when I was learning to drive, I felt nervous. I felt nervous because I was scared of getting behind the wheel. I was nervous, can I do it? What if I make a mistake? But there was also imposter syndrome as well, which I only realise now that I've sort of set up a talk about this topic. The imposter syndrome part was that, driving along and looking around on the road and seeing all these cars that are all driving absolutely fine, and you're thinking, they're so good at it, I'm never going to be like that. I don't feel like I can get to a point where I'll be confident driving around. So just kind of wanted to clear up that there are two things at play here, and you can be nervous and you can feel imposter syndrome as well, and the two probably fuel each other a bit. And there's loads of times that I've felt imposter syndrome, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of a taste. So I've just mentioned when I was learning to drive, but I did a panel talk a couple of months ago about gender bias, actually. I was absolutely fine, didn't even think about it, and then 5 minutes before I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Am I ready to talk about this? And really had a bit of a panic moment. I managed to calm down, but it's a pang for me, at least. It's all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, it can come to me where I'm thinking, I'm not meant to be here. Recently got promoted to head of UX, that's my LinkedIn post. Over the moon, I worked really hard. But then I'd have a moment where I thought, oh my gosh, like, am I ready for this? Am I qualified for this? I'm really not sure. So those little moments can come along. Just got a new cat. And you know what? I'm like, this is ridiculous. I had a moment where I thought, am I okay to be a cat parent? Like, can I do it? Everyone else is fine, but I've never done it before. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. So, I mean, if anything, I'm learning to laugh at those moments, and that is part of tackling it. And then now speaking at this event, this is the most ridiculous one of all, because I was doing some research into imposter syndrome, and I was reading up about other people's experiences, and they were really quite a lot worse than anything I thought. And I thought, oh my gosh, can I talk about imposter syndrome? So I actually got imposter syndrome for the imposter syndrome talk, which is just, I mean, ridiculous. So it just happens all the time. It's like, I think it's just a natural part of being a human, to be honest. Like, it's normal to compare yourself to others, and yet it happens all the time. So I want to just kind of delve into that little devil and the sort of things that imposter syndrome says to you. So for me, at least, it compares me with others. It says I'm underqualified. It tells me I'm a fraud. It says I'm underprepared, and it calls me a fake. And you know what? It needs to F off. The angel, on the other hand, the personal pep talk, as I've nicknamed it, responds and says, no, hang on, no, that's a load of rubbish. You have got this. It gives me a pep talk, as I've said, and it reiterates my experience. So for that example where I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I've got this promotion, like, am I ready? The angel goes, no, hang on a minute. You have done X, Y, and Z to prove yourself ready. You've got ABC experience. Yes, you are bloody ready. So that voice is so, so important. And it talks about when I did this before. Okay, I haven't stood in front of a big audience on a big stage before, but I've stood in front of a small audience on a small stage before. So actually, that voice can go, you know what, it's the next step. It's the next step on your growth journey. And it reminds me that I love a challenge. And I think this one's so key. Is actually all my life, I've been a little bit of an adrenaline junkie and just loved a challenge, and I love coming out the other side. So if you're feeling nervous and getting imposter syndrome, it's probably because you're on the cusp of the next step in your growth. And when you come out the other side, your confidence will be lifted, and you'll be able to use that elevation in your confidence to spur you on to the next thing. And yet it needs to speak up more. I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is not because I'm a big sufferer of imposter syndrome, but more that I feel like I've managed to get this voice to speak louder, and I'm sure mine speaks louder than others. So I want to kind of give you all permission today to allow that voice to speak up and to kind of internally stand up for yourself. So yeah, everybody's got both. Like, I used to think, oh gosh, I'm the only one thinking, you know, I'm in this big meeting and I'm the only one who's feeling like I shouldn't be here. That is not true. And it doesn't matter if you're junior or senior, people feel it for different reasons. You might think, okay, I'm the most junior person here, should I really be here? The most senior person's thinking, whoa, I need to speak up, like everybody's looking at me, I better know what I'm talking about. So actually, probably everyone's feeling it. Not all the time, but they will do. So yeah, personal pep talk. And I don't want you to just take my word for it. As I've said, it's not just me. So one of the really big bosses of ECP, he did a talk, and he said a quote that absolutely stuck with me. So I'm going to read it out for you. So he was asked, have you ever felt imposter syndrome? And he said, yes, all the time. at least once a week. But I think it's healthy. I think it's part of the fun of it. And he said, it's true, you know. I think the day that you're so arrogant that you don't feel it, that's sort of a bad day, and you must be well on the path to becoming an arsehole. And I was like, thank you, I'm not an arsehole. And so that was good. So yeah, take that away. If you feel it, then that means your arrogancy hasn't shot through the roof. Well, I love that quote. And then I've also got one. This is actually from a campaign that I've worked on the website for Cadbury's, called Give It Out. It's out at the moment. And what they've done is they've encouraged celebrities and other sort of ambassadors to speak out about self-doubt and to share this with young people to help them to realise they're not the only ones. So very much in tune with this talk. So I thought I'll let him speak if it works. Will it work? Oh, I can read it out for, if not. No. All right, I'll read it, it's fine. I quite often have imposter syndrome, where I have a split second where I think to myself, am I good enough? Can I do this? Have I got the skill set? Will people enjoy what I'm doing? Which is absolutely bonkers, because when I get into my job, when I'm doing it, I get a real sense of confidence. And I really love what he says here, because that really resonated with me, is when you come out the other side, you feel so good. If somebody says, oh, I really enjoyed your talk, or I thought you presented really well, or I think you're a really great cat mum, you know, those little moments build your confidence. So coming out the other side is so, so crucial. And I think he taps into the energy that comes with it. So he feels that energy when he's nervous and taps into that to fuel his creativity and fuel his career. So how you can tackle it. It is all about dialing down the devil who chats rubbish in your ear and dialing up the angel. And I thought with Wimbledon coming up, I thought I'd give you a poignant example. Venus Williams, what an inspiration. But somebody who has gone through real adversity to get where she is today. And I watched a video recently where she talked about turning no into a yes, which I thought was brilliant. And she absolutely revels in the challenge that sport brings, that every day is a challenge, every match is a challenge. Can I win it? Can I get to the top? And yeah, she's just absolutely battled that internal imposter syndrome. But one thing I haven't talked about yet really is like external factors. So I've talked a lot about what you're thinking in your own head, but what about if other people outside of your world are putting you down? And I'm sure Venus Williams will have come up against a lot of that. So partly it's kind of dialing down those factors, shutting yourself away from people who are negative to you, or standing up for yourself sort of publicly to them, and also dialing up external factors. So if there are people in your life who build you up, spend more time with them, you know, or listen to media or read things that build you up. Listen to companies and organisations like March 8. You know, that sort of thing, you can do it externally because that external world fuels your internal thought process. And now let's take advantage of it. So there's, you know, we've heard from Gok, we've heard from Venus. These people are using it to their advantage. So I think two really big forces here. Nervous energy, and note the word energy there. That kind of like buzz that you get when you're nervous is something that can fuel you. And also I think, I haven't got it on the slide, but what crossed my mind was there's a lot of stories where people say, oh, my teacher at school said I'd never do it. I'd never be good enough. I'd never achieve anything. And those people are so like motivated by that rubbish that's coming from this external world that they go on to prove to their teacher or prove to themselves that they can do it. So it can be a huge motivating factor as well. And then achievement. So it's coming out the other side. When you achieve things, when you get through it, just take a moment to go, yeah, I did do it. And then that becomes your next pep talk that you're going to need for the next challenge. So it's a natural thing. We all have it. Some people haven't mastered the art of tackling it and taking advantage of it. And I just hope that a couple of those pointers will help you all to do that. And then finally, just remember one thing. You are not fake. You are fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steph. That was a really fantastic presentation and lots of food for thought. So if any of you guys have any questions for Steph, if you want to raise your hands and we'll get to them, certainly. Any of you ladies and gents, I have a question for you because only recently did I actually find out about the term imposter syndrome. But I've been suffering from it for years, it turns out. Yeah. So are there other terms that people use, or is that a common finding for you that people just don't realise that there is this syndrome out there?
Yes, definitely. I only sort of connected with the term when I heard that quote from Dougie, Julian Douglas, who gave that quote from BCP. Because I don't know, I think someone had just mentioned it in a way that it clicked. But previously to that, I was like, no, I don't get that. That's not a thing. I get nervous, but I don't get that. So yeah, I think so. And I think probably a lot of us don't want to admit that we have it. It kind of sounds a bit grand, maybe, like a bit of a scary tone, like it's a syndrome. Like, yeah. I mean, but actually, really, it's just that little devil on your shoulder. So I think of it like that, because if you acknowledge that you do have that voice, and we all do, then you can use it to your advantage. But if you don't acknowledge it, then you can't really.
Absolutely. I mean, we got that from your talk, that it's actually not a bad thing, and there are advantages to having it, kind of like an arrogance check as well. But are there other advantages, do you think?
I think just keeping you humble, really, and
so maybe being a bit more thorough, I guess, in what you do. Does that affect people in STEM?
Yeah, actually, some people say that it really helps them to kind of drive up their quality, I guess, because if they have got that kind of internal sense check that says, you make this better, then that can also be a great driving force.
That makes absolute sense. I'm curious, though, to know, have you had any really surprising stories people have told you about imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think the two that I shared very much surprised me, and especially the VCP one, because he's so senior, and you just, previous to him saying that and, you know, admitting that he gets it, you just sort of put some people on a pedestal and you think they're so calm, they're so collected, like they must never think of these things. So, and then when you see like a celebrity, and Gok Wan's not the only one on that campaign to talk about it, it's like, but they're so successful, how can that apply to them? And it really does. So I think probably the most surprising are all the people you know who you think don't have it, they actually do.
That's the way to
They actually do.
And you've obviously worked with some big companies, and you mentioned places like Cadbury's. They're actually sort of helping with that aspect and, you know, driving up sort of self-worth. Are there other companies that are looking to do that as well? Have you had other experiences with sort of big clients?
Good question. Actually, with Saga, they're really rebranding to say, because they've got an older target audience, of course, and they've worked on flipping this whole, like, 50 plus, it's for older people. They've flipped it and they've gone, no, we're experienced. We've got a lot to say. And I think that's really cool. Like, you're kind of empowering target audiences. So they're quite a nice example, I think. Yeah.
Do you think imposter syndrome, maybe because we know the term also, is something that seems more prevalent among the younger generations, or do you think it is prevalent but maybe not as known?
I think that's a good question. I don't know if it's younger generations or not, or just feeling more junior.
Right.
Actually, a point that I didn't make was, I think sometimes being a woman, being more junior, being from a diverse background, sometimes that kind of fuels the imposter syndrome. I just want to say, like, kind of don't give in to it. Like, oh, because I'm a woman in this meeting of all men, they're not going to take me seriously. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but don't listen to that. Act like, you know, that's not a factor, and I think that will help you to come across more confident. But it is possible that it's more prevalent amongst younger people because they're just exposed to so much more comparison, because they have comparison in their real life and their digital life pretty much 24/7. So it's possible, yeah. And I don't know if there's a question at the front.
There is. Hi, yeah. What's your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think because if your workforce is more confident, and especially where I am, I really need like my team to be really confident giving presentations, speaking up in client meetings. So just thinking about it from a business point of view, it is to your advantage as a business to do anything that builds confidence amongst your staff. So this is just one of, I'm sure, many things. So yeah, I just think it's a great topic because it is so prevalent, and once you break it down, I think everyone can resonate. So yeah, I think it's a really worthy topic to speak about, and why I chose it today, to be honest.
Fantastic. And another question over here.
Thank you very much. Paulina Laurie, Frank Group. I've got a question because I absolutely love the fact that you said it's personal growth, basically.
Yeah.
So the fact that you going out a little bit out of your comfort zone, therefore the syndrome, then you are, next step ahead. So it's great. But what would you say is the role of others? You actually touched upon this one in your presentation. What is the role of others in individuals' imposter syndrome, and how big is that role?
The role of which
other people.
Other people in terms of helping others.
In a way of maybe encouraging you to do something, or maybe even discouraging you to do something, and how that influence imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I think there's actually kind of two answers to that. I think there's as other people, for others, we should really do our best to build up each other's confidence and be positive external factors, not negative ones. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning where they talked about when you give someone good feedback, like you agree that they've had a great idea, you both get a little dopamine hit. So it's just good for everyone to be a positive force, but to give constructive criticism as well. And then the other point, I think, which I think a lot of us are not good at tapping into, is asking for support, asking for that external reassurance, because that is really, really powerful. Like just asking for some feedback from your boss or from a colleague on a presentation, and you might get a bit of criticism, but that's fine. You can work with that, and that will help you to improve and be more confident next time. So yeah, twofold, I think. We should just do it and try and lift each other's up, but also do ask for it as well.
And I think we've got one more question over at the back there.
Hello, I understand there's probably not a lot of research around this, but do you have sort of any loose stats about how many people experience imposter syndrome, or how often they do?
I don't have any actual stats. My hypothesis is 100% of people, or maybe 99 if there's a few that are so arrogant they don't get it. And then the other question, the other stat was...
How regularly people...
How regularly. I think for me it's probably... I don't think there's a regularity as such, but it's more if I'm going into a big challenge, I would say, or in a particular situation. Anecdotally, they said once a week. It's really hard to say, and I think for some more than others. It sort of depends on where you find your challenges, I think. So yeah, it would be interesting to get stats though.
Perfect, thank you.
Is there, well, sort of leading on from that then,
yeah.
In terms of, different STEM areas and the roles within that. Do you see it more in certain areas, for example, engineering or among mathematicians or any other groups? Yeah.
I can really speak on behalf of technology because that's where I work. I think, we'll talk this afternoon about diversity, but I think when there are moments where you are the diverse one, they definitely fuel it, and we do have a problem in technology. So I think there is that, and we're probably quite a lot of introverts as well, which is also going to fuel it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that we probably do get it a lot, but like I say, I think it applies to everyone, so maybe it isn't more in STEM than anything else. Who knows? We need some stats.
It's a good area for anyone who's looking for a bit of data collection, I guess.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that absolutely amazing talk. Really interesting, lots of food for thought. And thank you everyone for watching us on the March 8 live stage, both here and at home. And we will be back really shortly with our next speaker. Give it up for Steph.
Thank you.